Hey guys, welcome back to the Luxury Rental Doctor Show. I'm Dr. Rachel, your host, and my friends, do I have a treat for you today? We're diving into a true innovator, someone who went from the 9 to 5 grind to building a portfolio of short term rentals, and now, hear me out, now creating an amazing AI solutions that has gotten me and the hosts inside of our community asking ourselves, where has this been all of my life? So if you're tired of being glued to your phone, answering guest messages at 2 a.m., this is the episode for you. This is your prescription for freedom. So let's dive in. Jay, welcome to the show.
Hey, Rachel. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, Jay. So you are the CEO and co-founder of HostBuddy AI, which is one of the leading platforms for AI messaging, which has revolutionized the guest and the hosting space. So we're thank you for supporting us. I'm super thankful for this tool in our lives as well as our members' lives.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for the intro. I think that was fantastic. So I'm excited to dive into a little bit of that today.
Okay, so right now you're sitting on a really nice portfolio of short-term rentals, about 40 or so properties that are under your management, and that is not a small feat. And I'm sure that the guest messaging piece is what's helping you. The AI side of the guest messaging piece, it's what's helping you with that whole enterprise. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not somebody who's coming into the short-term rental space as a tech person trying to fit into the industry. I couldn't have just built a 40 to 50 property portfolio on the side while I'm building this whole software as well. So it really started as a short-term rental management company. That's how I got into the space. I transitioned from being a civil engineer into short-term rental management back in 2021. Built the software HostBuddy AI in 2023 to solve our guest messaging problems. So automates all of the messaging so that you and your team don't have to do it. And we've developed it using state of the art AI that is going to sound like you and problem solve and troubleshoot all the different things in your properties and know everything about you and your properties and your guests and your availability. So it's really efficient. And we launched that over a year ago now. I think May of 2024. It's really not been that long, but growing very quickly, and it's becoming something that's very important for all hosts, I think, nowadays.
Okay, so it sounds like you were actually living the problem before you solved it. And right in the green room, we were talking about, some of the custom GPTs that we build for the members inside of our community. And it's based on actual real life problems. This is their actual lives that we're talking about here. And I think that's what makes us entrepreneurs at the end of the day. So could you paint me a picture of what was that light bulb moment for you that said, you know what? We got to do something. We've got to build something to kind of, compress that stress of the guest messaging.
Yeah, and I think the story for a lot of people of why they start using HostBuddy is going to be different depending on your portfolio size. For us, the reason why we wanted that automation was because we were nearing 30 properties and we had a virtual assistant working the mornings and a virtual assistant working the afternoons and the evenings. There was no coverage for overnight. And, I'm somebody
Mm.
who wants to maximize and optimize every part of the system that runs behind my Airbnbs. So having I guess knowing that our virtual assistants were just responding to a lot of those repetitive messages bothered me a little bit because it felt like they
Mhm.
were saying the same things. We can have canned messages that they're just plugging in.
Yeah.
There's scheduled messages that are going out. So there's a lot of things that are already set up to be automated in a way, or at
Mhm.
least triggered or canned for them to go and send out. So we were thinking, how can we automate this guest messaging process overnight without having to employ another person on our team, right? Because if they're going to
Mhm.
be working another 10 to 12 hours every single night and we're paying them hourly, that's something that we don't really feel we need to take on at this time. So, we've been using a lot of AI and using it for kind of our daily lives and some business things as well, and realizing how capable it was. After ChatGPT 3.5 came out, it was like everything really changed for
Yeah.
how we looked at the capabilities of the hospitality focus within AI, the capabilities of it within the hospitality industry. So it was really my business partner Sam started thinking like maybe there's a way for us to just like create a link, or we can send out like an easy chat focus or a chat box to our guests, and if they like it, that'd be great. And so we kind of played around with a lot of just rudimentary uh, basic like Zapier plugin type AI that we would just send out a link to our guests and say, hey, this is like our friendly AI chatbot that you can chat with at night if we're not available because we're sleeping and our team isn't on. And the response to it was really, really great, even though the AI that we created wasn't even, that great. Like it had a lot of details about our properties. We gave it our welcome documents and stuff like that. And so we thought, we might have a real business here because there's nothing on the market that does this for us right now. And if it could actually plug into our like PMS and our OTAs and respond automatically, like that would be amazing. So then we kind of took it a step further, teamed up with one of our good friends, Michael. So now it's the three of us co-founders, me, Sam, and Michael, and we all have our different skill sets, but we're all essentially, short-term rental hosts at the core. And that's why we've created the AI to sound the most human possible, because that's what we care about as hosts.
Yes. Okay, so I love this so much, and all the questions are just flooding in. What would you say? What is your skill set, and what are your partner's skill set? Because I love the fact that you brought in those who didn't exactly duplicate your skill set. That is one mistake that I've seen entrepreneurs leverage. And for those of you who may be in private practice or you have your own practice, if you're looking to partner with someone or joint venture with someone, it's really important to analyze whether or not they're going to bring something a little bit different to the table than you. So let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, and I think like it was always like it took some time to figure out what our defined skill sets were going to be within short-term rentals, within software. But I
Mhm.
realized quickly with Sam, because I partnered up with him in my short-term rental management business back in 2021. He was working software sales. I was working as a civil engineer. And I said, hey, came to him with this idea of just doing rental arbitrage just to start off. And he thought that was a great idea, very easy to enter. And so we both went in on that together and kept working our jobs for 9 or 10 months. And then we just completely quit and went full time into short-term rentals. So that's a different story. But from at the beginning, it's like we didn't really know like how we were going to complement each other on our skill sets and things like that. I knew Sam was really good on sort of like the customer service side of things.
Mhm.
Worked a lot in sales, recruitment, stuff like that. And I had more of an engineering mind. So I was always focused on systems and operations. So once
I love
that sort of developed into the property management business, we realized like what our strong suits were. And mine was very much so like optimizing our operations. So then going into the software side of things, Sam a lot of times is like the vision guy. So like he's like, what if we did this? Like there's always, I think, and I've heard this a lot of times when people talk about like partnerships. There's always one person with a vision and one person who kind of makes it come to life, or like
Yes.
optimizes it. And that's
Mhm.
sort of how Sam and I work. Within the software space, Michael is really our technical person. So he's a software engineer. He's the person that's actually like coding and programming it. And Sam and I are kind of like that double sided vision of we're both SDR hosts, but I know how to optimize certain things in the short-term rental space. Set up our systems to be really efficient to like trim down the fat. And Sam's always coming up with a lot of great ideas and ways to implement things. And he's really good at hearing out what our customers have to say, implementing it into our product. So we kind of work together there so that like things come up. He's the CPO, right? So he's the chief product officer heading that product side of things. I'm the CEO and kind of doing a lot of the more like PR, marketing, and then also a lot of our operations side of things kind of internally. And then Michael's our CTO. So it's a cool dynamic. And I got so lucky that I've worked with multiple really great partners, because I've heard a lot of stories about people working with others that it just doesn't
Yeah.
really work out. But I think like sometimes in those situations there's little things that come up, maybe arguments between you and your partner or your team member, and a lot of people decide that like this isn't fit for us, like we should quit, it's not right, like let's break off. And I think for us, like we've had a lot of issues just running businesses together, and we've always worked through it to find out like what is the most important thing to us. And we can always work past it just by coming to an agreement. It's funny, working with three people is actually better than two, because you can usually have like a majority and then you kind of understand like, oh, if these two other people are thinking opposite than me, then they're probably right. and then you consider that further. So there's pros and cons to it, but it's been a good journey, and I'm definitely lucky to have Sam and Michael with me on that.
Okay, that was such a bonus portion of this episode. So thank you for allowing me to take us in that direction. So I do want to rewind back. You said that initially you came up, you had cobbled together some canned messages with Zapier and came up with a little chat bot, and people actually liked it. My assumption was, oh my gosh, they're gonna hate that. So thank you for sharing that. So they actually liked it.
I think it's in the way that you present it too. It's like,
Okay.
our typical work hours are 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Outside of those work hours, we aren't unfortunately going to be immediately available. However, we do have a good resource if you do have any simple questions that, maybe can't wait until the morning. If not, here's our emergency number to reach out to if it's, a definitely an emergency and we can pick up the phone. So it's kind of like showing that we're still there, but if they're easy questions and you don't want to bother us late at night and you want an immediate answer, like what's the Wi-Fi, how do I use the AC, stuff like that, it's going to provide you with that immediate answer.
Love that. Okay, so what was the point where you transition from that beta chatbot to the mindset of, hey, let's really make a product out of this, let's productize this, especially since there was not anything really that's a standalone in the marketplace. Yes, there are some PMSs. I'm not going to dig anyone in a hole. There are PMSs with some chat capability, but they're a bit lacking and they do sound a bit robotic, like ChatGPT version 1. And so what was impressive to me about the HostBuddy AI, a couple of things. First, the little bit of a latency with the responses. So if you go online, guys, to hostbuddyai.com, you can play around with the tool and meet the little buddy. And when you ask a question, it actually looks like it's thinking. There's like the animated ellipses. It's like, oh, I'm kind of thinking about this answer versus bam, here's an answer like a resident on Red Bull who hadn't gotten any sleep and is just blurting stuff out and it's not correct. So
Mhm.
I do like the fact that it does sound more humanistic. There's a little bit of a pause before it answers the question, which I thought was really, really interesting. And so how did you get from here to there? Because I've got some things that I'm cooking up on cooking up. Is it on my sleeve? English is my third language. Cooking up a few things. I don't think I have
up my
on my
sleeve, a couple
sleeve.
tricks up
A
my
few
sleeve. I
things
think
on my
maybe
sleeve.
yeah,
It's
that's a
on
great
your sleeve.
question.
Yeah. So
I
how do you
think,
go from here to there? I'm asking really selfish questions now.
yeah, no, I think that's a good question just in general because I think it was the confidence knowing how much value what we had thought of or had like
Mhm.
created preliminary was going to provide to the industry because we had such a great perspective on it ourselves. If we weren't hosts ourselves and we just stumbled upon the short-term rental industry and we thought, like what can we solve here? Like
Boring.
it would have been a little bit more of a risky move because we don't fully understand the ins and outs of what hosts need.
Yeah.
And looking at the market at the time, there was nothing that we could plug into our systems to automate that process. So we thought, I guarantee you, and we didn't even really ask a whole lot of hosts before we really jumped into this entire thing. We just knew like this was such a great idea. Like hosts were going to love this. Everyone loves to buy back their time and save,
Mm.
and now you can generate additional revenue with HostBuddy too. So there's a lot of different things kind of coming into it, but we knew that if we started this journey, people were going to love it, and we were at the forefront of it with the new advancement of AI. So everything kind of came together, and it just happened to be that Michael, our CTO, was quitting his full time job at that
Oh.
time to literally just become an entrepreneur, but he didn't have like a defined path of exactly what he wanted to do. He just knew he wanted to work with AI. And we're like, dude, this is perfect, like trust us, this is a great opportunity. And so he, kind of like played around with the idea, and we thought, we asked him like, how hard would this be to create? And he's like, oh, it wouldn't be that hard, we can do it. And so it was kind of that like that
Wow.
yes we can mentality of like we can really do anything in this industry, and like we can like pave our way. And I think that's still why we're so successful in the industry, is that like we approach a lot of these problems that people come to us with like an open mind and think like we can do it, um,
Mhm.
which we're already seeing a lot of our customers get a lot of satisfaction from just like being able to provide their feedback and immediately kind of get some feedback from us and then for us to implement new things and be able to improve the lives of other hosts. But at the very beginning, like we had no, we had no like feedback from anybody else. It was really just us thinking like this could be it, and it worked.
Okay, I love that. Again, you were solving a real life problem, and I think that's where a lot of us who are technophiles we go down a rabbit hole. I love tech. I come from healthcare, guys, but I love tech. I implemented the electronic medical records for Epic Meditech. I was a VP of a startup tech company out of Colorado providing remote support, so a software and a service, and software as a service, remote support overnight. Uh, and we built out a system to provide remote support because the rural markets like Grand Junction, Colorado, it's not as rural anymore. I think it's expanded. Like some of those smaller hospitals, they just did not, they couldn't afford the help overnight from the pharmacist. And so
Got
with
it.
this tech tool, the pharmacist could log in remotely and cover like 32 hospitals, and it wasn't as busy. However, when the nurse needed the med, they needed it. But before certain meds get dispensed, a pharmacist has to take a look at it first and make sure the kidneys are okay. They can, so no one crashes. And so I'm very much a technophile, and I went down a whole rabbit hole, and I forgot my next question. My video editor is gonna love this. Please edit it out for the love. Please just edit it out. But all this to say, you're oh, here it is. You're solving an actual problem. So oftentimes, oh, for those of you who are like, okay, AI, I'm just gonna go online to YouTube and try to figure out how to use some AI tools. I want you to think about actual problems that you have in your actual life and how to solve those problems, because one of the biggest energy drains is getting those guest messages. And so for our docs who are looking to get into real estate and who are worried about, they're already on call, right? They're at dinner, they're on call, right? And so they're in their scrubs at dinner because they know they may get the call. And now they're on call with that first short term rental. What would you say is that first step to getting that better, I would say that ideal guest management, while still providing themselves with a bit of self-care and buying back their time outside of HostBuddy AI? But what else can we provide for them as far as a tip or a trick?
Yeah, and I think like a few years ago, my answer would be a little bit different, but it's all like pretty similar in general. It's, you kind of have to live that hospitality, short-term rental host lifestyle for a little bit to really understand what holes need to be filled and really like kind of perfect your brand and like how you deal with certain things, what are your SOPs, and maybe those SOPs aren't things that you've written down yet, but they're things that you know that you've stored. When this pops up, when a guest mentions this, here's what you do. And maybe that's you and your spouse, maybe that's you and two other people, whatever it is. If you have one property or two or three or four, if you're kind of just starting out, like I think starting to get organized and recognize what those repetitive tasks are that don't necessarily need your involvement is going to be huge. So if that's guest messaging, which for a lot of people it is, my first move back in 2021 was to find a virtual assistant that can step in and do that for me. Because if I'm really trying to scale the business and let's say exit my 9 to 5 or my whatever, whatever, I guess for you in the healthcare industry, it's more like a 12-hour shift, like an 8 to 8 or something. But if you're trying to kind of get out of it and you want to scale your business, then if you're maintaining and you're busy dealing with those repetitive messages, trying to deal with reordering supplies in your business, trying to coordinate the cleaners. There's all
Yeah.
these things that take up a lot of time that like right at the beginning you can really just like automate. First of all with people and second of all with tech. So I talk a lot about like kind of like the advantages to using tech over people in certain different areas. But one of the very first things that I implemented was just cleaning management software. Like that's very, very easy. Just put somebody on a schedule and automatically notifies them when there's a cleaning coming up. And then they have all the information they need. They go and they clean your property. Like at the beginning, I was cleaning my properties by myself with my partner Sam, and so
Same,
like you got
same.
to be in that environment and kind of just like be deep in your business to understand what you need sometimes. But nowadays, there's so many tools that can kind of automate it before you even need to get to that stage. So there's a ton of things. But I would say, like, yeah, first of all, find those gaps and know that there are resources out there. Like, I think what you're doing with your community and being able to provide them the resources and the right tools to like really grow their business without stressing too much is great. Like, what I always encourage people to do is just talk to the host in your market, talk to the people that are hosting kind of like in the same sort of community. So within your niche, like what's working for people in healthcare, and what are those best tools that you all like? I think that's really great because if it's working for somebody and they're willing to preach about it and talk about it, then it obviously really does work. And there's just so many tools out there that it can feel a little bit overwhelming sometimes of like, which one do I use? Do I need a PMS right now? Like, I think sometimes having that path of like seeing people do it before you is really helpful nowadays.
Okay, you just mentioned PMS. So, for our audience that are not yet acquainted, what is a PMS?
Yeah, PMS is a property management system. So it seems like there's a million of them out there. So there's just a lot of different softwares that all relatively do the same thing. Some of them have kind of like additional features, but essentially it's going to unify all of your channels into one. All of your online travel agencies is another term for those. So like Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com. It's going to bring all of those listings all into one place. Ideally, you should be listing in all those places to maximize your visibility on those channels to make sure that you're getting the most bookings and filling up your calendar. So once you do that, you kind of need one place to put it all into one unified calendar, unified inbox. That way, instead of logging into Airbnb and Vrbo and Booking.com and Google and trying to manage all these things in different places, it's all in one place. So it's great. I mean, like I love the PMS. I don't have to mention like which one we use or anything, but there's so many good ones out there, and yeah, there's a lot of good tools within the PMS, and the PMS is great as like like a first connecting point, so that if you want to use other tools, it all connects into the same thing, and like it's like a base.
Yeah, absolutely. So you typically, in layman's terms, we would use a PMS to kind of deconflict our calendar. So if I get a booking on the 4th of July on my Airbnb listing of the same property, and because I value visibility, I'm also listing that property on Verbo. I'm going to list it as many places as possible. Well, the PMS is one of their superpowers is they will block the property on the other platforms. So that's one of the ways. And what Jay is mentioning, if you want to like integrate some other tools like chatbots and other little things, you would typically do that through the PMS. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, Jay. This is another techie question. Um, Airbnb limits who can connect to them. Like, you can't just wake up in the morning and say, "Hey, I just want to. I'm a software company. I'm just going to connect to Airbnb." So, oftentimes, since the PMS already has that relationship with Airbnb, if there's another tool, you could probably work to connect it through the PMS. That's is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah, 100% correct, and that's why I mean, like as new tools come into the space, it takes some time for them to become a direct partner of Airbnb. So, for
Mhm.
example, HostBuddy isn't a direct partner of Airbnb. There's not a direct connection. So, using those PMSs, we basically cater to those customers, to those hosts who have a PMS or using it already. I
Yeah.
know our STR hosts that have one property and they have a PMS just because they want to bring all their channels together. Like, it's just a
Mhm.
great place to kind of manage everything. So, you're exactly right that it's a perfect place to kind of connect all of your other systems and make sure that everything works well together.
Yeah, and from a time management perspective, imagine you have like one big log, like a chat, and you're seeing your verbal listings and conversations in there. You're seeing your Airbnb conversations. They're all in one place where you don't necessarily have to log into multiple portals to see what's going on with multiple guests on multiple platforms. So it can get a little dicey. So having just one PMS that connects that one property, all of the listings for that one property is really, really a handy dandy tool where you can save a lot of time.
Yep.
Okay, so my video editors are probably not going to love this, but are you comfortable with sharing screens so that we can take a little look at HostBuddy? Are you in a space where you can do that? And for those who are listening to the podcast, head over to the YouTube channel. Jay is nodding. He is okay with sharing a little screen. I think for the people, right? I think it's going to make it super dynamic if we do a little screen share.
Yeah. Yeah, I can kind of bounce around in there a little bit. Let me know if there's
Yeah,
anything
I
that
didn't
you want
prepare
to
for
see.
you this day. Yeah, I'm so
I'm
sorry.
always ready. Let's go.
Awesome. So there's a little arrow at the bottom of our.
Yes.
It's
Wow, that was
letting you
quick.
do it. Yes.
All right,
We're sharing screens. Let's look. Talk to
we're in
us
here.
about HostBuddy. What is HostBuddy AI? I need to see it to believe it. I need to see it. So Jay, let's go.
Yes, let's do it. I'm gonna skip all of the promotional stuff on the front page, and we'll just log into one of our accounts. So I'll run through some of these pages just to show you some of the cool stuff that it does. So basically, the AI is in the background tracking all of your conversations. It's reading all of the data that's coming in, and it's creating insights on your business as well. So it's showing you how many messages have been responded to. You can see this is within the past month. There's been 2,400 messages responded to by HostBuddy. This is for my property portfolio, actually, of 45 properties, I think we have. And then you can see 591 is ones that have been responded to directly by hosts, whether that's a scheduled message coming from a PMS, whether that's us jumping in and saying something. So you can see the majority are taken over by HostBuddy. The average response time is really whatever you make it. So I think you mentioned earlier, like there's kind of like this processing time that it takes where like it's going to be at least 30 seconds for it to really do that deep reasoning and produce a great response. But you can also, if you're a user who wants to just make it feel more human, you could have like a delay on it. So it only sends out between 3 and 5 minutes or 6 and 10 minutes. And that just kind of makes it feel like it's, you've thought about it, you receive the message, and then you send it out versus immediately spitting out a response. So um, something to note there. And then also we are tracking guest sentiment, which is also very useful for a lot of other functions within HostBuddy. So you can see if they're having a positive or a negative experience, and you can kind of track these month over month to make sure that your company is achieving those standards. It'll show you the timing of the day. And then we're also tracking action items that are going on within your conversation. So if there's like, somebody, for example, this guest requested a specific payment link to reserve parking because we reserve parking manually. This person reported that their car mirror was smashed. This is actually a great example, but honestly, a terrible situation for this guest. So these are things that you'd want to be able to get notified to as a host. And this is so you know that like even if the AI is taking over all of your messages, you're gonna be you're gonna be in the loop, right? So that we're always storing these action items, but you can also get these sent to you through text or email or Slack, WhatsApp. So there's a lot of different ways that you can make sure that you're looped in, and it's not just the AI taking over your whole business. You're still connected, and that's really important for us and our hosts. So that's just the dashboard, but that kind of shows you an idea of a lot of the things that we do. I'm going to jump straight into the inbox. So this is actually a newly updated inbox that we have. So the UI has been refined, and there's a lot of different functionalities in here. So you can kind of see very similar to kind of what you'd see in the PMS, but you're seeing like all these little tags for if it's a future guest, if there's a check-in today, inquiry, current guest, check out today. So very helpful for you to just like use this inbox as like your point of connection to all of your OTAs. You can track the guest sentiment like I showed you before, assign different users on your team to it. And if you're somebody who doesn't want the AI to just respond automatically, you can also just use this inbox in general to send out messages to guests and draft it using AI. So you can generate from scratch, generate from your own instruction too, and just kind of tell the AI what to say. And so this is your own sort of chat GPT style tool that's within our inbox. We use a number of different LLMs, large language models like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini to power our AI, or our AI responses. But this is essentially the same AI that you'd be getting with the automated messaging. So you can kind of have some training wheels and not feel like if you just start and turn it on HostBuddy, it's going to automatically take over all your communications. There's a lot of ways that you can kind of get introduced to it slowly and feel comfortable with it. But essentially, this is kind of your message center for everything. And we've added a lot of really cool things here too. So one of the recent things we've added is WhatsApp. If you're somebody who uses a WhatsApp number and has your guests message you through WhatsApp, now all of those messages that you get on WhatsApp are going to be in HostBuddy as well. So you can have your HostBuddy AI automatically respond to guests who may be sending you messages on WhatsApp instead of using Airbnb chat or Verbo chat. So that's been really helpful for a lot of our hosts as well. Um, and then I think I'll touch on just a couple more things. I know we don't have a ton of time, but The properties page here is just where you are going to control everything. So a lot of people ask, like, how does HostBuddy know how to respond? What data is it using? And I'll just show you an example. So you can go into property setup for any of these properties. You see, we have a lot of them here. We'll just go into this first one. And you can see right here, here's all the different pieces of knowledge that it's taking in. So your property management system, in this case, we have Hostfully connected. It's pulling in your property availability and pricing, which is really useful. Guest and reservation data, past conversations, which is the last 6 months. And then you can also upload welcome documents or SOPs or anything that you use internally, or maybe you give to your guests, so that it's like you're training a new employee, right? You want to give it all the resources that it needs so that it can respond properly. And then you can also edit any of these things. So there's a lot of listing details, like what's your cancellation policy, how far out can you book, and what are the access details. And then there's also amenities. So very similar to kind of what you'd see if you're setting up an Airbnb listing, except all of this data is pulled in and filled in dynamically through the PMS into HostBuddy. So you don't have to fill this stuff in manually. It's really easy. And then another really cool part, and something that I love about HostBuddy, is that we have this SOPs page, and this is what makes HostBuddy so powerful. In addition, is that there's a lot of situations where if you didn't give HostBuddy this information about, like, how to handle missing backup keys, for example, how to handle parking related issues, early check-in requests, it might not know how to handle those things, right? Because it's just doing its best with the information that it has. And so if you are able to go through and fill out a lot of these, your AI is going to be extremely effective. And so that's what separates us apart from a lot of different AI tools on the market, is that we give you the opportunity to really customize your SOPs, and that way you can maximize the amount of messages that are being covered by HostBuddy. And we have people that it's like 95% plus of your messages are completely covered by HostBuddy. You only need to jump in there when there's a major issue, and you can set certain action item settings so that when the guest mentions a certain thing, I get notified. If they said that they're traveling with a pet, I get notified. So there's so many different things to customize on here, and we tried to make it as not overwhelming as we could, because I know, especially if you're a host with just a few properties, or maybe you're just getting started and you want to use HostBuddy, it can look like a lot to kind of feel like you have to go through and customize all of this, which is why we use the autofill, and we kind of guide you through this SOPs process so that you're making the most out of the AI. And then a couple last things that I do want to mention too is there's a few different ways to kind of maximize your revenue, and also just kind of create a better experience for your guests. So that number one thing that I want to mention is upsells. So this is really cool if you have like a 2 night minimum or a 3 night minimum or 4 or 5 nights in your specific market for your listings. A lot of times, if you have, like, let's say a 2 night minimum and you have two bookings right next to each other with a 1 night gap night in between, sometimes they're called gap nights, sometimes they're called orphan nights, whatever you call them. A lot of times they go unbooked because you can't book them, because you can't book for longer than or for shorter than 2 nights. So what HostBuddy does is automatically recognizes those opportunities, and it'll send out a message that you customize to essentially sell that night. So if whether it's a post stay gap night or a pre stay gap night, you can say, for this in particular, like, we had a night that opened up right after your reservation. If you're interested, we can offer you the ability to extend your stay by 1 night, and you can give them a discount. There's also personalization that goes along with it. So it's really cool, kind of once you dive into some of these things, like how much AI we've implemented in a lot of our tools. For example, like, I'll go into smart templates. So this is basically like what you'd see in an OTA, where you can create a template that's going to send out to anyone at any time. But we've added personalization to it using AI. We've added context checking. So, for example, like, post check-in welcome message. Let's say we wanted to set this up, and it's going to say, "Hey, hope you got settled in okay. Please let us know if there's anything we can do to make your stay more comfortable." In this case, if you've already discussed this with the guest, maybe they already checked in and they said, "Hey, like, the place is really dirty, and I don't like the way that this is set up," and they've already expressed their experience. You might not want to send this message out, right? But if you're using a traditional template with an OTA or a with a PMS, it's going to send that message out regardless. But we have this context checking where the AI is going to say, "Oh, actually, we already discussed this, so I'm just not going to send anything at all," which is really helpful. It makes you feel more human. And then the personalization along with that is going to say something like, "Hey, I hope you had a safe travel in coming from Houston. Let us know if you need anything." And it'll just kind of add that additional, like, touch of personalization by reading your past conversation and seeing, like, "Hope you have a great day at the zoo tomorrow," or like, enjoy the baseball game with your family that you mentioned you're going to. So stuff like that really, like, adds that personal touch to it. And it's not that we're trying to hide that it's AI. It's just how can we make the guest feel most comfortable and feel like we're there and we're ready to like, give them whatever they need during their stay. So those are a lot of just quick examples, but obviously free to explore HostBuddy. It's free to sign up. So if anyone wants to go and just to kind of explore all these features, feel free. And we have a lot of good resources that kind of guide you through this as well.
Okay, so I love it, and I do love how you positioned it in terms of, that trust. Because at the end of the day, hospitality is all about trust. And I will tell you that when I brought you into our luxury rental academy to speak to to our community, it was game on. A lot of the individuals were super excited, but a couple were a little bit dicey. One neurosurgeon in our community, she's like, "Oh my gosh, the robots are taking over." Trying to take over our jobs because they're training robots to do some of the neurosurgery interventions and to take care of some of the cases. And she goes, and now it's coming into hospitality. And so she hesitated because she says, how do you really earn the trust of the guest when it's not a real person responding? So any thoughts about that? Because at the end of the day, you're right. We want to make sure that the guest feels like they're cared for. What's your mindset around that, Jay?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting kind of how the industry is shifting their mindset in general as far as like the host and the guests. Because I know
Mhm.
for me personally, like I've stayed at a lot of Airbnbs, and sometimes when I stay, like I feel bad even like bothering the guests. Like there's some people like that, and then you also have or sorry, bothering the
The
hosts rather
host,
by
yeah.
saying, "Hey, you know what? I can't find this in the property. You mentioned you have
Mhm.
this. Like, if there's just an AI tool that you guys have that I can like ask these questions, like I'd much rather prefer that." So I think what we're finding is that a lot of times guests, they don't care that you're using AI as much as you think that they do. And
Yeah,
that's just kind of the reality of it. And what you can do also, and we see a lot of people do this, is within the settings in HostBuddy, you can have a little signature that says like my friendly AI assistant. That way, every time it responds, they know that it's AI.
yeah,
You can also schedule it for whatever hours you want. So if you wanted to only take over that like overnight shift and just have it do like the very simple questions, you can do that.
yeah,
And there's also ways that you can customize it so that you defer if there's a specific item that HostBuddy can't resolve. It's either just going to not respond at all, or you can have it respond by saying, "Hey, I don't have the information right now.
yeah,
I'll get right back to you," or something like that. And so there's kind of ways that you can like make it fit however your preferences are. Um, and there's a test property function too, so you can always ask it a bunch of questions beforehand, kind of similar to the Meet Host Buddy feature you're mentioning on our website.
yeah,
So a lot of stuff to kind of make you as a host feel comfortable. But I would say, what we find is that that additional coverage that guests are receiving at any hour of the day is
yeah,
an overall net positive to your communication score that you're going to receive on Airbnb or Verbo. Like we see our reviews from our users increase all the time. People are mentioning like my I'm getting so many more 5-star reviews because like it's so prompt and tentative or attentive, and that's just like something that you don't initially think about is like how quickly the AI is responding and like
yeah,
how good of a service you are providing to your guests. It's
yeah,
it's just really automating the repetitive part. So
yeah,
whether they know it's you or whether they think it's an AI, like I think the reality of it is now like as long as they're getting that good positive experience, they're going to be happy.
yeah. That makes a whole lot of sense. And I'm more of a technophile. I love technology, but I did want to speak to that. So you mentioned that you have opportunity to make more money with HostBuddy because those orphan days, man, let me tell you, we lost so much money in the beginning of our hosting journey because we had that like 2 night minimum or 3 night minimum. However, if there's one little night that's squeezed in between, all you would have to do is ask the guest that is leaving, hey, do you want to extend your stay for a discounted rate? And you can make a couple of more bucks. Or on the other end, the guest that is coming in, you can ask them, hey, do you want to um, check in the day before? And you can make a couple bucks on either side. And there's so many little opportunities like that that get missed. And so I love that HostBuddy is giving us an opportunity to automatically do that task because the amount of mental lift it would take We actually hired someone on our team. Your job is to help us fill in these orphan days because the property is sitting right there. It's beautiful, it's set up. But if no one's booking it, those nights aren't getting sold. That's money out of my pocket. That's money I am leaving on the table. So, on the opposite side, I want to go back to the contrarian side of it because we're going to have some skeptics on the call. Have you on the call, on the channel? Have you seen any hosts lose money or lose a booking because of how AI handled their situation?
Um, I think it all comes down to how. So there's been situations where, like, I guess truthfully, if somebody is sending an inquiry and they say, hey, I'm looking to do this, when I'm, or they ask a specific question about the rental, and let's say you haven't provided the AI the resources to do so, and it responds with, hey, don't have an exact answer for you right now, let me just check with the host or check with my team and get right back to you. We've had people report, like, if it had that information we would have converted. And I think what
Mm-hmm.
it comes down to is, like, making sure that the AI has the right information, that it can convert on those bookings that come through, or inquiry messages that come through. So I think, like, the people and the hosts that we see do the best are the ones that really take some time at the beginning to connect their systems and make sure everything's really clear. Outside of that, the AI is never going to hallucinate, um, or AKA just make something up that's completely not anything that you provided it. If it doesn't have the right resources, it's just gonna send you an action item. You can jump in and take care of it from there. Um, and it's always going to do its best to use the resources that you've given it to problem solve and troubleshoot, and things like that. So it's very rare that we see situations where people are like, oh, the AI, like, completely mishandled this situation and, like, now I lost money. It's very rare, and if it does happen, it's because the AI just didn't know and it deferred over to the host, and maybe the host missed it, or the host took some time to get back. Maybe the guest was looking at other options and they ended up just not going with your property. But yeah, there's a lot of tech that we've implemented in the background, within our AI, to make sure that it's effective on that front as well.
All right, Jay. So we're about to land this plane. Let's talk coins for just a short, quick second because my listeners are super smart, but they're super frugal. So, what's a doctor got a budget to bring this HostBuddy AI into their lives? Are we talking latte money or skip vacation money?
Oh, it's latte money. It's probably less than latte money if you consider how often you get a latte. So, it's between $5 and $10 per month per property. So it's really not much. And the property, I read the subscription's relatively low still right now. I think moving into the future, it's going to be more of a hot commodity. So obviously, the earlier you join, the better you're going to be off. But it's always going to be affordable. And I think that's our mission, is to give hosts a 10x return on their customer service costs.
Right.
So whether that be, hiring a VA, or versus the time that you value yourself at for responding to those messages, instead of having AI, in there to help you out. So, what we say is, like, 92% is, like, the savings cost that a lot of people will see if they, implement AI versus using a virtual assistant instead. It's crazy, the amount of money that you can save just by implementing it. And the major thing for people who are just getting started is just getting that time back. Like, if I had a tool like this when I was starting, I would have, like, absolutely scaled way faster. It would have been amazing. So
Totally.
I'm hoping to provide that to short-term rental hosts now, so that they can focus on the other important parts of the business, because the industry is competitive in most markets, and you have to do a lot to focus on creating a good experience for your guests in other ways, and being in the property to make sure that you're creating the right environment and providing the right amenities and doing all these great things. So, there's a lot of things right now that AI can't do, but if we can simplify the guest messaging and automate that for you in a good way that's effective and increases your reviews, that's a great option for all the hosts out there.
Oh, Jay, I cannot thank you enough for blessing us with all of these amazing gems for that amazing demo. So, guys, if you're listening on a podcast platform, head over to the YouTube channel so that you can take a look, a little sneak peek inside of HostBuddy AI for yourself. Jay, tell our listeners, and we'll link everything in the show notes. How can they connect with you and learn a little bit more about HostBuddy AI?
Yeah, I would say just go to HostBuddy AI is our website. There's good resources on there for you to contact us. Info at HostBuddy AI is our main email. But the cool thing is we give a 2 week free trial to anybody who starts using HostBuddy. So there's really no reason if you're interested not to sign up, just because you can see if it's for you. Play around with it, try out their responses, connect in your properties, and so on and so forth. Even before you get started, we have that Meet HostBuddy page, which is really fun to play around with. So I think we're the only AI messaging solution that does that, just because we think we've built the best AI on the market and we want to show it to people. So really excited about that. But you can also find me on social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, J Ulrich, in a bunch of different ways. But I'm sure you can search it and find me wherever you are searching.
Awesome. Guys, definitely check out HostBuddy AI. Yes, play around with the Meet HostBuddy. I love that little tool. And trust me, your future self will thank you. So for those of you who are looking to invest, not just in to improve your bank account, but also to improve your destiny, whether you're scaling your properties or looking to scale your peace, the right tools make all the difference. So if you're ready to trade burnout for breakthroughs, slide into HostBuddy.ai and hit me up. I'm Dr. Rachel Gainsborough, and this has been the Luxury Rental Doctor Show. Bye-bye for now.